I said like, oh, this will be 1 million lines of code maybe. What I name it, and I started thinking, and I already felt like I was delayed in delivery. So I finally wrote, never mind, I'll think about it later. You don't see it probably, it's behind the sofa, but it doesn't matter really. So never mind came as it doesn't matter how you name it. If you build a good code, if you keep learning, if you keep pushing forward, whatever you name it, it will work. Like there are companies with such strange and stupid names. Well, never mind is probably one of those. Just keep building. This is business plan from 2017, and why do I mention it? It's important to know that I was not planning to build an open source project that will never finance itself. From the very beginning, the idea was this will be a company that will be large revenue stream working with big institutions delivering for hedge funds. The idea was, oh, this is blockchain. People will need it for financial operations. There will be DeFi. Everybody who is building on blockchain is kind of not taking that experience of working with large companies. I had it, so I thought this is my advantage. So I'm joining the community. I know nothing about the blockchain, but I have like 10, 15 years of experience of working with financial institutions. And at that time, there was not enough money on blockchain for the people with lots of experience to start. I was lucky enough that I got some early small investment in crypto that made me money enough for supporting myself for 2 years of journey. That's why I say, like, for many of you, that story might be so impossible. Like, that was incredible luck. The theory, and this is what I keep remembering from my university. The dean of my university kept saying this sentence, like, repeatedly: there is nothing so practical as good theory. And I loved it, and I keep thinking that this is so true, that every time you want to build something, well, again, not everyone, but when you want to build something and you think that it has to succeed long term, then sooner or later you have to understand it very, very well. Well, so why not start with it? Why not start with just understanding the theory perfectly and read everything that you can find on the topic until you're bored with it because you simply get it, you feel it. So I started with some of those, like the foundations of blockchains appear recently, and why I'm adding it here. So I read Mastering Bitcoin, I did the cryptography course and a few other things, and I kept reading. Before I started a company, every year I was spending probably 5 hours a day reading about blockchain. Many of you maybe are doing it. Foundations of blockchain appeared recently, and after 5 years of building blockchain and building core development clients, I started finally learning what BFT means and what consensus means. So I didn't follow entirely my advice, but I also followed the advice that keep learning later. If you didn't, theory will never fail you, I think. This is what I really started with. So I started with yellow paper and implementing the client from the yellow paper because I felt like, oh, this is exact representation. And when I wanted to build a client, I wanted to build a client to learn how Ethereum works, not to really, initially not exactly to deliver the client. I wanted to build more like trading tools. So yellow paper was telling exactly how Ethereum works in a mathematical way. If I looked at other code base, I would be influenced by the code base, by someone else's interpretation. So I decided to go with just the sheer theory and explanation, mathematical explanations. I could build a code base that would be different. A year later, I understood that it was extremely important for client diversity, because if you build 5 clients by looking at the code base and copying it and just rewriting it in different language, then you'll end up with the same construct, same algorithms, same ideas. This allowed us at Nethermind to just force a bit of a culture of always building something first, the ideas, and then comparing them with others if we want to. Helps with diversity of approach and helps with a lot of performance breakthroughs in Ethereum. We did something so differently that they ended up sometimes being slower, but then you can replace it after learning how others did it. But sometimes we did it so much faster, so we allowed for innovation. Tests. I love tests. I love writing tests. I'm not sure, like many developers hate them. And I have lots of stories as a manager of engineers where I just ask for tests and people just ignore me. Over and over again, people just ignore me and not write tests, write the code, come back. And Yeah, very often as a manager, actually, I'm very emotional. So then it makes me very, very angry. And write tests first. And writes a lot of them. And write tests for every single thing, like meta tests of tests, integration tests, unit tests, fuzzy testing. And if you want to build a large application, successful application, is probably the only way, at least, yeah. Well, some people say not, but I love the tests. I just enjoy writing tests when I know that I can have everything perfected. Performance. Yeah, like whenever someone says to me like, oh, premature optimization is the root of all evil. Well, that was, people say that Donald Knuth wrote it. He was definitely not a midwit. So I think in the end, it's me who is midwit with this premature optimization. But I tell people, yeah, start optimizing at the beginning because performance is everything. Sometimes when I think why Twitter succeeded, I tell myself that this is because when you press the like button, it happens so fast. And maybe there were other social media when you press the like button, you waited 100 milliseconds. But on Twitter, it's like, I don't know, 5 milliseconds or something. Those things matter. So from the very beginning in Nethermind, I just spent months optimizing the code base before it even worked. And there was a time, I'll talk about it later, I don't know if you have that much time, that we just sped up the Ethereum syncing by 5 times because we're just so obsessed with performance of everything. And this is silly because we wrote it in .NET, like I only knew .NET, so probably we should have written it in C or Rust or something, but it is actually not that much slower. But yeah, performance matters. Compatibility. From the very beginning, I thought like, okay, I'm joining the race with Geffen parity already there. I need to make sure that everything is compatible on JSON RPC. It's still not, but that gave us some kind of adoption. That parity started disappearing later, and we had the parity RPC, so people could switch to Nethermind without pain. That helped us to start, and it's really hard to start when you're starting from like 2 years behind. Dealing with rejection. This is a story I never mentioned officially before. I learned from it a lot. So I was building this client code base with my like early co-founder kind of joiner from the first year. And we built the first version I wanted to show to people as 0.9. I would prepare like this on Reddit. Like we say, is the version what it is? Someone asked like, oh, explain me what it is. And the person that I super respected came over and said like, oh, it's like you have no friends in Ethereum, but you want to play with people, so you just build this client. And I was at the time in the cinema at the date, and I was super excited. I was checking how people respond. I read this, and I think it was the cinema where I can like buy a pizza and champagne, a super cool place. I kind of wasn't happy. I was very sad. And then after the movie, I was like without emotions. I saw like, what should I respond to it? And I had all these emotions, like angry, like I don't like this guy anymore. And like, how, like, oh, this is so. And then I responded with this. I just realized that this is true. This is exactly what I was doing. And this is what we always do. We notice something that is super fun. People are playing with some cool toys. And from the time when we are 3 years old, the whole life is like this. We notice something that we're excited, we want to join some community and build together with others. And we have to somehow approach them, like, I don't know, build our own toys or just come over and start talking. I was not good at coming over to community and talking. I famously didn't know that there is core devs channel for the first 1.5 years of building a client. I thought you have to be invited, but it's actually public and you can watch it. I didn't know it. The believers, so even as there are some rejection and people that maybe sometimes mock you or have bad day, there are also believers. So Antonio Sabato was massive help in London. He was building communities. If you find community builders, stick around. They will help you to not be shy and to be introduced. And he told me to start Twitter account. I didn't have Twitter account. This is the announcement of Nethermind client. I thought that I found a niche I'll build for enterprises. And I got the grant and I got presentation in a smaller room. And then on the same day, I realized that I never learned that Consensus was building enterprise-focused client as well. So they announced it on the very same day. and I had like, I don't know, 200 people listening. The next day I thought, okay, I have to find another niche. Social media. So I had a Twitter account, but was not using it. And then I wanted to build. And then one day, Vitalik yellowed $300,000 on the projects that were planning to build things. So I kind of realized that you probably need to use Twitter to be seen and be noticed and build and be part of the community. It feels like it's strictly financial. Yeah, it's easy to quantify. It was not about finance, it's just realization that, oh, people just connect there. How much time do I have actually? I have time, or is like I should finish?
No, that's
5 minutes more.
yeah.
I'll rush it. Building through the dark times. Yeah, there was a time in Ethereum when everyone was saying that execution clients will be decommissioned, and that there'll be no execution clients anymore because we're moving to proof of stake, and there'll be only consensus clients. This is the only thing I had after 3 years of building, so it kind of felt a bit sad. But I kind of also felt that it doesn't seem right, that it feels like execution clients will somehow matter. At that time, we had maybe like 5 or 6 people at CoreDev's channel, and Ethereum was saying that the state will die because it's too big, and this is exactly when we managed to get this like 5 times improvement from 20 hours to 4 hours of state sync, and kind of encourage GAF to do the same performance optimization. The GAF team spent the next year improving performance, so performance mattered because we introduced this idea of just performance has to be great. And yeah, people around were helping, and we went through that. So this perseverance of building for 2 years of the bear market, keep building the code base. It's risky. I say somewhere like it's risky with the perseverance because I think many of the founder stories where you suddenly succeed are that, oh, I was just about to die as a company and then I succeeded. The thing is this, when you're a founder, this dying is very long because you just like, have so much hope, you're like 3 years dying. So that's why so many stories are of the founders that were succeeding just about when they're about to go bust, because like the span is long. So it's hard for me to encourage anyone to go through this dying process because many companies really fail and it's really painful, and I actually usually tell people that I regret it. Actually, Christoph, who started like as an intern from Nethermind, he started company, now got this like massive funding from Andreessen Horowitz, so it seems already like a success. Obviously just started, so it's not. But he came to me and asked me like, okay, so as a solo founder, how it is? I said, don't do that. I regret. It's like unhealthy. It affects your friends and family. And at the end of this meeting, he said, amazing, amazing, I'm gonna build it. So that's why I happily tell you, I regret it. I wouldn't start this company once again. I would just continue as a corporate person. I would probably be healthier and happier. Maybe not sure nowadays, there's so many happy moments, but yeah, it was painful. You still probably will start companies somehow, so I know I can tell it. Luck, yeah, lots of luck and timing for me. So I invested in cryptocurrency without knowing much about it. It brought me a lot of money, $200,000. It's like half of it to fund myself, the other half went to zero. And during the bear market, I spent all of this that I got for myself. And then when the recovery happened, I had the knowledge and experience, and the company was there, and everyone wanted to build on blockchain, so suddenly we had a lot of money. It's like, because it was bear market, I could catch up. If I started a company during the bull market, everyone would just run away and would always try to catch up. This is impossible to catch up with like these large projects, well-funded projects. You can only build this and do that when nobody else believes in it anymore. So I'm not sure if it's some learning from it, but hidden things is like one thing about the culture, very important for us, I think. Every time your competitor or your partner says something stupid on a single day, or like they burst with emotions, or tell you something mean, like you think like this thing about toys. They may be going through something super heavy. They may be struggling themselves. They may be feeling attacked. So just understand that they're all with emotions, and the next day they might be important. Always build with them, understand them. I said that. This is not important. Internship program, this is important. So we built a lot with the internship program. We had 350 people going through Nethermind. And we decided to design it to help the people succeed, to make sure that they can do whatever they want, that we didn't design it to hire people for Nethermind, but we designed it to simply listen and ask whoever comes to internship what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and try to help them to deliver that. We knew that some kind of a side effect of this will be that many of those people will bring us some value. They'll stay with us, and they'll connect us with the companies that they'll go to, or that they will just bring the ideas because they join and they come with all those fresh ideas. This is massive. So much of the culture at Nethermind is the internship program. And it's also important in the all-remote setup when you have just the separated channels, people don't see each other, they don't talk to each other, don't bump into each other with the coffee machine regularly. The interns are just like going from team to team to team and asking questions and saying, oh, like why are you doing this way? That team is doing that so much better. So they're actually acting as this information carriers in the company that helps a lot, I think so. Or maybe I just think so. Okay. Thank you so much for listening and coming.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing your information about development culture. Thank you. Okay, we are really close to end, so I'm getting really emotional. So another speakers are representing the Ethereum Foundation. We have Light Clients. Light Clients, we will be talking about the L1 protocol governance. Please give a warm welcome to Light Clients. Okay. We have a chair problem. Maybe we can wait a minute. Door just closed. Oh. Please take the microphone. I'm out of this. Please take this. Okay. I really messed up. So, can we wait a minute?
Hey everybody. This is my first time to Istanbul. It's been amazing so far the last couple of days. Thank you so much for having Devconnect here, having notDEVCON, making us feel welcome. It's been, yeah, super exciting. And a beautiful talk by Tomas. Like, this is really such an amazing event. I'm excited that I get to be a part of it. So today I get to talk a little bit to you guys about protocol governance and how I think about the way that we govern the Ethereum protocol. And really what I would like to talk about is this question and try and elucidate it a bit for you so you can understand when you see the discourse on Twitter, on whatever form of media that you interact with Ethereum with, should Ethereum do blank? Insert your favorite EIP or insert your preferred scaling solution of the protocol. And also, maybe a more difficult question in some senses is this question of when should we do a certain thing? How many people have seen this chart or something like this chart before? Yeah, I mean, the big guy posts this on Twitter for us, Vitalik. So you can't really read it super well on this screen here because there's so many different things that we think that we want to do to Ethereum still. But the idea is that we're not really at a shortage of things that we feel like we should be doing for Ethereum. There's almost an endless supply of different proposals that exist out there to make the protocol better. It's more of a question of like, how do we prioritize all of these things and how do we get from the idea to the actual implementation? Because trying to bike shed the very minute specification of how this thing is going to be implemented in clients is extremely difficult. So I want to lead with like these two analogies before I talk about exactly how the protocol governance sort of works. And the first analogy that I want to talk about is thinking about protocol governance in terms of degrees of freedom. And so this is kind of how we think about the degrees of freedom of 3D objects. You can manipulate a 3D rigid body in 6 different ways. And the Ethereum protocol is a little bit like this in some senses. Like, we can manipulate it in many more ways than 6, but I think that there's still constraints on what it's possible to do at the protocol, and to do with the Ethereum protocol. And that's really what degrees of freedom are. It's like the degrees of freedom are the free and unconstrained pieces of data in some calculation. And an example of something that I would say is relatively constrained in the sense is that we can't change this a lot because it comes from the very beginning of Ethereum, the original ideology of Ethereum, and that's this idea of proof of stake. Ethereum started as a proof of work protocol, but at the very beginning, there were aspirations and ideas of moving to a proof of stake world. And we didn't know how that world exactly was going to look. And we're not saying that there's not some degrees of freedom on the exact implementation. Like, we were talking about this idea of single slot finality, which would be a very different proof of stake protocol than the one that we have today. But it's still something that Ethereum is moving towards and did achieve. And it's not something I think we're going to revert from. So I consider this as like a constrained aspect of the Ethereum protocol. And so it doesn't really matter what the developers, what the researchers, what the community wants, because Ethereum at its core wants to be a proof of stake protocol. There are a lot of other things that have arisen over the past 8 years that we didn't consider and that weren't really part of that initial ideology of Ethereum, and we don't have the constraints built in for, and I think MEV is like a really good example of something that only was sort of discovered by Phil Dion in like 2017 with his paper Flash Boys 2.0. And so we have many more degrees of freedom in how we deal with MEV. Do we burn it? Do we share it? Do we not think about it? There's a lot of possibility there. And you know, there's just like so many possibilities in these things, and there's other things that we have as a core beliefs of our system that we don't want to change. And so I think, like, to start, I think it's just important to think about where the developers can move the protocol and where they can't move the protocol, and what's on the table and what's not necessarily on the table. Of course, over time, it's possible for there to be shifts of things, but I don't think that, you know, give it 10, 20, 50 years, we'll ever shift from this idea of decentralization good to thinking that decentralization is bad. Like, this is, again, like a core part of what we believe in and what we think Ethereum should be. So that's the first analogy. To set the scene. And the second analogy that I want to give is based on this book that I read a while back by a guy named Douglas Hofstadter called I Am a Strange Loop. And the book has nothing to do really with technology or Ethereum. It's about consciousness and thinking about where consciousness arises from. And I thought it was just really interesting that he talks about the way that he thinks consciousness is bootstrapped. And he calls it a strange loop. And he says that in our minds, we are able to think about things as symbols. Like, I can think about this water bottle as a symbol, and I can reason about it, and I know that if I twist the cap, I can open it, and if I need to drink it, like, I can drink it. Like, these are all things because I know how to interact with the symbol, the water bottle. But we can also symbolize ourselves, which is like where he says the strange loop comes from. And it's like, when you have a self-referential symbol, strange things happen, and he isn't really able to figure out, like, how, you know, consciousness arises from the self-referential sense of looking at oneself, but it kind of does. And the interesting aspect that he gets from that idea that sort of I think of Ethereum in a sense is that he says there's not just one consciousness of yourself, there's also low resolutions of your consciousness in your friends and family and people you interact with, because they've built symbols of what you do and how your behavior is. And that's the thing that really resonated with me with respect to Ethereum, because Tomas has his idea of what Ethereum is. He's like built his symbol about it, and I've built my symbol about Ethereum. And we have a lot of this similar input data, you know, being in the space, interacting with all core dev calls, being at events like this, and that is like developing the symbol, the image in our mind, but it's still like very low resolution. And I think like through these types of interactions, through writing, through communicating and building Ethereum, we end up like creating a higher resolution version of it. But at the end of the day, it still ends up being slightly different. And I think this is where a lot of the difficulty of answering that question, like what should Ethereum do, comes from, because we all have our own symbols and our own perceptions about what Ethereum should be. And it's really, you know, coming to the agreement on the difficult topics and trying to solve that problem of agreement whenever you just see things in a completely different light. So for example, like some people think 100 million gas limit is a good thing, and other people think that 10 million gas limit is where we should to be. And these just come from the fact that people who think there should be a 100 million gas limit, they might be working on a client that's extremely performant, and they don't see a reason why we shouldn't drag all the other clients forward. And then the people who have the belief that there should only be a 10 million gas limit are trying to think about this far-fetched future, 10, 15, 20 years, where we haven't figured out how to reduce the state size of Ethereum, and they're just imagining what would happen if you accumulate state over the next couple decades. 4337, this account abstraction, ERC, there's the debate of should this be in the protocol, should this not be in the protocol, should we have gone with a different version of account abstraction than this, is it too complicated, is it not have enough features? These are all things that we're constantly debating and trying to figure out. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to realize that vision. So I want to talk a little bit concretely about how we tend to try to realize this vision. And I think in Tomas's talk, he talked really nicely about a lot of different avenues. Like we had Reddit back in the day. There's this all core devs asynchronous channel. There's Twitter. There's public forums like this. And these are all inputs into the governance of the protocol. And so it's funny, like explaining what I do to people who don't really work in crypto, because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I send tweets on the internet, and that's like, I get paid to do that. And it doesn't really, they don't understand that it's not just about, like, I can't just decide that this is what we're going to do in the protocol. Like, I really have to convince the community who are eventually going to have to update their nodes at home that that's what we want to do in the protocol. And so that's like a very important aspect of it. But what I wanted to talk about with this graph is what we would call the official avenues of governing the protocol. I mean, as official as they really can be. This is sort of an emergent structure that's happened, not necessarily a top-down system, but just something that's arisen out of the need to have venues to make decisions. And the two places the decisions are really made, where everything that's happened to the Ethereum protocol to date has been verbally announced upon these two channels, the EL call or the CL call. And before the merge, we used to call the EL call all core devs, and still refer to it sometimes as all core devs. And that was the place where, like, truly all of the developers who are building Ethereum came every 2 weeks at 1400 UTC, the ordained time to speak about the protocol. And we discussed what needed to happen to the protocol. And yeah, a lot of the things were kind of decided or had been discussed, you know, at length outside of this call. But this is the place where you had the sides present their arguments and moved forward with the decision. We have the saying of like rough consensus and running code. And so generally, you know, when the thing is presented, unless there's a really strong veto vote and there is rough consensus, we tend to move forward with that thing. And that's a super vague and difficult proposition to say that's how we move forward. A lot of people are like, well, is it 3 of 5 clients, 4 of 5, 2 of 5? Like, at what point do you make the decision? And there is, and part of it is by design. Like, we don't have a specific percentage, a quorum that we have to reach. It's really just, is this feeling right? Are the people who are opposed to the thing, are they willing to block the thing? Do they want to stand up and say, we're so against this, we're not going to implement it? Or is it more minor, like, we disagree a bit with this doesn't quite fit within our ideal of Ethereum, but it's okay, you know? We're a team player, we want to move the protocol forward, and this isn't necessarily going to break what we wanted to do. So, you know, then it tends to go in. But we have these governance facilitators who play really just a fantastic role in helping make this process happen. And these are people like Tim Bako and Danny Ryan. So Tim has been running the EL call for the last few years. Before that, it was Hudson Jameson since roughly the beginning. And their job is really to make sure all of the relevant people are heard in the discussion and try to herd the cats, essentially, which is like a old Ethereum saying, and in fact a group that we have that's sort of like behind the scenes. It helps run a lot of the governance calls, takes notes, does recordings, all these types of things. And so these are our cat herders. They're trying to make sure that, did Geth say their thing, did Besu, did Nethermind, Reth, whatever, did they all say what they needed to say on that topic? And now that we have all of the statements, yes or no, should we move forward? And they're not trying to bring their opinions in per se. It's more they just want to make sure that the relevant things rise to the top. So they play a super important role. Of course, we have the research team at the EF. There's a lot of research teams outside the EF now. I made this chart about 3 years ago when it was a little bit more EF focused. It's still very EF research centric, and that's something that we're trying to break apart, but it's difficult to have people contribute on the research level from outside of like a small quorum of people who are connected and talking about these ideas a lot. And you know, they put a lot of input into these two calls about how should we move forward, and a little bit less so on this EL call these days because the research team is mostly focused on consensus layer related stuff. At this point, like the execution layer developers are mostly the ones who are iterating on the protocol. There's not a lot of crazy research questions that are trying to be solved, with the exception maybe of Verkle. But that's kind of the execution layer call in a nutshell. I also wrote that the community has a big input into the execution layer call because originally it was our only call. And so the all core devs was the place where if in the community you felt that something needed to be said about Ethereum, that was your venue to say the thing about Ethereum. Today it's a little bit less, but it's still the place because most people who interact with Ethereum interact with it as a user or a developer. And to do that, you have to go through the Ethereum virtual machine. And if you need to change something about it, you have to go to the EL call. I expect as time goes forward, people will care more and more about what is the economics of Ethereum, should the consensus layer do something different. But in my experience so far, we haven't had a lot of community engagement with that call specifically. So the consensus layer call is the call that has sort of governed the beacon chain consensus layer since its inception. It sort of started out as just this working group with Danny and the few consensus layer teams at the time who were developing the protocol. And it's obviously evolved into just as an important call, if not more important than the execution layer call, since these are the developers that are maintaining the consensus of Ethereum now. And they have the same sort of interaction with their consensus layer devs. It's interesting because the consensus layer call ends about 30 minutes into the call most of the time, whereas the execution layer call tends to go 5 minutes past every single time. So you can kind of see that there's a lot more, there's a lot clearer of a symbol in the consensus layer developer's mind. Like they're all coming from a very similar, they're coming for a much more similar perception of how Ethereum should look or how the Ethereum consensus protocol should look. Whereas the execution layer devs, I think we're coming from like many more places. I mean, Tomas said it specifically, like he implemented from the yellow paper so that he wasn't influenced by how other clients were writing it. And I think that's really cool. I think that it's really neat that we had people who were trying to understand Ethereum from their own first principles, using how they've experienced the world, the things that they've learned, and bring that to make a more resilient protocol. Not to say that the way that the consensus layer is bad, it's just an interesting fact of the matter that the consensus layer, they all started together, more or less. I think there were 3 clients at the very beginning who were iterating on the beacon chain before it was live. And so they just have very much more similar ideas of what the beacon chain should be and the types of changes. And so we sort of see that with the consensus layer call having much less conflict about what to do going forward into the future. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen this channel on Twitch. This is Twitch Plays Pokemon. I think it's one of the funniest things ever. Like, you send in the Twitch chat what move you want the player to make, and then it interprets it and sends it to the emulator on the computer. And so eventually, over time, the chat plays the whole Pokemon game, and they end up like defeating all the gyms and catching all the Pokemon and stuff. And it's just, I don't know, this is something that I come back and I think about a lot, because I'm like, how is that possible? Just, you know, the internet, someone is able to drive this character through this. This is not a short game, through the whole game to defeat all of it. And I just keep thinking this is very similar, it feels, to what it's like to work in a decentralized environment. Because we all have an idea of what Ethereum should be. We're each tugging in different directions, sending our moves in the chat, saying, you know, 100 million blocks, do data availability sampling, make the consensus protocol like this, focus on light clients, all of these different things. And sometimes a bunch of people go to sleep, and then one player is left in the chat, and he's just like sending a bunch of moves, and they make a lot of progress all of a sudden, and then he has to go to school or go to work or gets tired, and other people step up. And I think it's similar in that sense too, because there have been people throughout time. I mean, Ethereum is 8 or 9 years old, and we have people from the very beginning still contributing to the protocol, and those people were playing a lot in the beginning, and now they play a bit less. But sometimes they come back in, and for a few months they just send a lot of moves, and they move us forward in a really good direction. And so this is just, yeah, something that I've thought a lot about in terms of working in open source and a decentralized thing. And I also think it's a bit of the answer to the question, you know, should Ethereum do this thing, and when should it do it? And it's not the best answer, but it's kind of the only answer that I've found out so far. And, you know, we just keep playing the game. And so as long as we keep sending moves, we'll eventually get to that thing that Ethereum is supposed to be. We don't know what it is yet. We're developing it as we go, and we have ideas and, you know, a vision of where it should be. And as long as, you know, you have enough good and honest actors playing the game, pressing the buttons, then we'll eventually get to that vision that is Ethereum.
Thank you, Light Clients, for this informative session. Okay. I'm not gonna break everyone. Let's keep calm. Okay, let's deep dive into Trust Network with our next speaker, Manu Alsu from Block Ravers.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. We're going to talk today about trust networks. Who here has heard about block ravers? Raise your hand. Awesome. Okay, let's get started. First of all, what is trust? So trust involves a willingness to rely on the actions, words, or decisions of another party with the expectation that they will behave in a reliable, honest, and a competent manner. I just got this from ChatGPT. Okay, so if we take a look into this. So we have something that is known, something that is unknown, and we are in this ocean of uncertainty. For us to get to that unknown place, we actually need this thing that we call trust that is so fucking complex that we actually don't know what it means in many different contexts. So, in my opinion, trust is the lubricant of our society. So what are the core drivers of trust? So for me, and for many others, and this varies depending on the person that is looking at it. But in my personal opinion, trust requires authenticity, meaning that I experience the real you, that I can feel that you're real, that I can feel that you have something that is unique. Competence, that I know that you can do something, that I trust your judgment, I trust like you're going to be doing something that is good and that you have actually the expertise for doing so. And then empathy, that I believe that you care about me and my success. So we need all of this, in my opinion, for trust to trust to work and to grow. So how can we increase trust? Humans, we have done something very cool. We have created protocols for increasing trust. The first started with a handshake. Actually, a handshake was used as a way for showing that you didn't have any gun or didn't have any weapon in your hands or that you weren't hiding anything. So it was a way to show that you basically were receiving the other person or welcoming the other person without guns or without violence. Then we started clinking glasses because we like to drink. Well, in reality, why we started clinking glasses is because some kings, they were afraid that someone would poison them. So they started clinking glasses with other people. And, they started pouring some of their wine to other people that brought them the wine to see if they will drink together with them. And as a show that they trust them, rather than pouring some wine on their cup, they would clink. So that means I trust you. I don't need to check that you're trying to poison me. And then somehow Gen Zs and millennials, we came up with this pinky promise. And but yeah, there are many other ways, many other protocols that we humans have been using in order to increase trust. Here you have a QR code. I actually encourage you guys to scan it. This is a very cool game. It's called The Evolution of Trust. In this game, they apply some game design, let's say, theories, and they study how different, let's say, different people behave, let's say, with time. It's not the same if you, let's say, meet someone for the first time and you know that you're not going to see them again. You don't necessarily behave the same if you know that you're going to see them over and over and over with time. How many of you have asked someone at the airport, please look at my bag? Okay, there's someone there. You don't know that person, but you still ask them, please look at my bag, because you expect that that person is not going to steal it, not going to run with it. And yeah, basically, we humans, we always are using trust. And yeah, with this game, one thing that we can learn is that for us to increase trust, we need to repeat interactions. We need to have repetitive interactions. Another one is that we need to create win-win situations for all of us. Another one is that we need to reduce the miscommunication. We need to be able to improve as communicators. So yeah, as you can see, trust has evolved over time, and it keeps evolving. Trust, at the very beginning, it was all local. It all depended basically on your community, on the people that you knew. If you wanted to, let's say, ask for some money in a small community, let's say 100 people living in a small community, you will ask for money, and probably if you don't necessarily have collateral to pay, probably they will loan it to you because you are part of the community, and basically you're not going to run away. You're still going to be there. So there's somehow some sort of reputation. Then that evolved. When we started living in cities and when we started living in these, let's say, big communities, it started to become very difficult to start trusting humans one another. And then we started using something, some proxy, let's say, way of trusting, which we call it the institutions. We created religions, we created companies, we created all of these different ways for, let's say, working together. And now we're starting to see that, actually, who here trusts the government? Raise your hand if you trust the government. Oops. Who trusts religions? Wow. Well, it seems that we're really losing the trust in the institutions. And now we're getting to the age of distributed trust. But if we take a look in the institutional are very opaque. They're closed, they're centralized, they're licensed, they're top-down. Just, in other words, shit. And then the distributed, we have transparent, inclusive, decentralized, accountable, and bottom-up. But hey, guys, we're not there yet. We're there. And why I'm saying that we're there is because all of these different systems that we're creating, we still need to trust someone. So in this world where we, as I said before, we had the institutions in the middle, and now we're having this distributed trust. In this world where we need something in the middle to help us with trust, we have platforms, we have marketplaces, we have many different ways for, let's say, reliant trust, or not reliant, deferring trust. And then let's say that the square in the middle is the platform. So now you need to trust the idea of the platform, you need to trust the platform itself, and then you need to trust the users that are using the platform. That is in the, let's say, if we think about the Web 2 way. The Web 3 way is a little bit different. But let's go back to the Web 2 way. And remember what I said. Actually, I think that we're not there yet. We're not on the right side. We're still very close to the left side, to the institutional side. So if we go back to that, it's important to say that we're creating trustless systems. But hey, they are not completely trustless. We still need trust. So depending on the project, some trust is still needed. So first of all, we rely on energy. We need energy. So we trust that we're going to have energy. I'm from Venezuela, where they cut electricity every day for 9 hours, 10 hours, every day. So is this that we're creating necessarily, let's say, for Venezuelans? I don't know yet. So yeah, we're also relying on the hardware. Many people will say, yeah, Bitcoin is super decentralized. Anyone can come and participate in the network. And I would say, how many companies are providing the miners? Very few. Those companies that are providing the miners, they actually use it themselves for a long time, and then they resell it to whoever they want to resell it. They decide who they resell it to. So we're still relying on these parties. So then we have other form of trust, the consensus trust. We have tokenomics trust. So we rely that the economic system makes economic sense. We have regulatory trust. We have oracles and data trust. We're relying on all of this information that is not necessarily on chain. So yeah, we are still delegating some trust there. Now, the security of the contracts, are the developers that created this aware of all the possible vulnerabilities that could exist? Then we have privacy and anonymity. Let's say I'm interacting with a protocol. Is that protocol necessarily really protecting my privacy or my anonymity? Well, that's up to us if we trust them or not. Now then we have protocols, services, protocols or services trust. So now we rely on Telegram, we rely on Discord, we rely on Discourse, we rely on all of these different platforms and all of these different services. We are deferring our trust to those entities as well. So, and then we need to still trust the core team, because they're the ones who push merge. And then we still need to trust. Now we have this new other thing that is not only the core team, now we have a DAO. But the DAO sometimes is very opaque, and we say that it's transparent, but it's very opaque. And then we have stakeholders, maybe investors, maybe other, let's say, parties that are participating in the project. And yeah, there's other forms of trust. As you can see, this is very complex. We are not creating, let's say, completely trustless system. That's the spell that some magicians that come here want to throw at you. Please be careful with that spell. Pay attention. Be skeptical. You always are deferring trust to someone else. So yeah, fuck. Trust is very complex. So why is trust so important for us, the block ravers? For those that don't know, the block ravers is a group that started in DEVCON in Osaka in 2019. They usually, in Japan, they close the parties around 1 or 2 in the morning, and a lot of people were coming to me and asking me, hey, where do we go next? What do we do next? So I started asking people, hey, do you have a place where we can go? Do you have a place where we can go? And somehow, like 10 people came to me and said, okay, we can go to this place, to my house, we can party here, blah, blah, blah. So we created this group, and we were telling people after the party, we're gonna go here. If we get kicked out, we're gonna go here. If we get kicked out, we're gonna go here. So let's say a censorless party that will travel around Japan. So that's how we started. But it has evolved during these last 5 years, 4 years and a half. In Colombia, we had over 500 people that wanted to join, and we couldn't accept them all because we didn't know them, we didn't know who they were, we didn't know if they were actually aligned with our values and with our culture. So yeah, we had over 260 members in the community and 240 almost requesting to join the community. Sadly, as I said, we couldn't accept everyone because first, we didn't have a space for hosting everyone. Second, we want to preserve the culture that we're creating. We want to preserve, let's say, the different principles and values that we have in our culture. And yeah, in East Denver, one of the house parties that we did, someone came and graffiti our house. So we're like, damn, how do we do now that people are coming and destroying the places that we're providing for the community, our sanctuaries? So yeah, then we started doing something there in Denver. We started asking people to fill out the form to join our group, and they will need to write down who vouches for them. And then we will go to the person that apparently vouches for them, and we will ask them, do you vouch for that person? Are you sure that that person, that you know that person? Do you know them well? Are you sure that they are aligned with your values? And asking all of these questions. And people will start to think sometimes, actually, not really, I don't know that person that much. And why we were asking this question is because we told them, if someone that you invite come to our community and destroys something or is a harasser or does something that puts in danger our community, they're gonna get kicked out and you're gonna get a yellow card. And in the second yellow card, you're out as well. So like that, we created, let's say, a way for us to have some sort of, how would I call it? Some sort of degree of knowledge of who we are as who is coming to our places, but also that the person that invited them felt responsible. So there was some sort of accountability with what we're doing. In Susalu, we started doing something very different. We started experimenting with these things that everyone has in their pocket, which are, let's say, the traditional NFTs that we call them paper money. These traditional NFTs, they have something very unique. They have characteristics that makes them only one. And some of those characteristics include the serial numbers. So we said, okay, what if we started creating a trust network where we can actually vouch that we met in real life? So imagine that instead of having a government issuing an identity to you and telling you this is you, you will come and say, this is me. And you put a paper money, you take a picture, and this serial number, basically you're saying, me, I have ownership of this paper money. And then I will come and show it to you. Hey, look at it, I have it. Hey, look at it, I have it. Hey, look at it, I have it. And by doing that, I started creating all of that, all of those, let's say, different vouchers. I can vouch the one that you have, you can vouch the one that I have, and so on. We could start creating a network of trusted humans, or let's say a network of people that basically we know are real, like we can see, we can talk to them, we know they're real. We started playing with this game. So for you to come to our party, you had to have one of these NFTs. We had thousands of Venezuelan bolivars that we were just giving away for free to everyone. They're shitcoins, so nobody cares. So if you're gonna forge them, forge the highest bill, highest denomination bill in maybe the US dollar, but not forge the Venezuelan currency. So yeah, another thing that we did is like we said, okay, for you to come to our next party, that was our first party, we said anyone that has the bill can come in. The second party, we said, for you to come to our party, you need to have 3 vouchers, a minimum 1 vouch from a Block Raver core team member, let's say. So like that, we started curating the people that were coming to our place and that we thought that were completely aligned with our values. And then the next party, we said, okay, now you need 5, and so on. So like that, we can create, let's say, different games and different circles and different groups of people that are actually somehow aligned. That was the hope that we had. So now, coming back to what I was saying before, here, this experiment was so cool, so cool. We created an application and started vouching for each other. You come with your profile, you register your bill, you say, this is me, and started vouching with people. And then we created a social graph. Big problem. All of this is on Ethereum. All of this is public. So imagine that you, as an individual, you are an influential individual, and everyone can see who are the people that you trust. That's a vector of attack right there. So because of that, we said, okay, we need to stop this. We're not going to move forward because we think and we believe that everything that we do when it comes to reputation and identity needs to be private by default, and that you actually open it up to the different people that you trust or different circles that you trust, but you own it. You have, let's say, you have the possibility of revoking access, approving access, and so on. This is what we believe, and this is what we strive forward. So if any one of you think that these ideas are cool, please reach out to me back after the talk. Let's talk. There are a lot of things to do. For Devconnect, we started playing with the Ethereum Foundation. They created these cards called job emojis. The job emojis are cards. By the way, the block ravers have, there are 10 block ravers that have those cards. Meet them around, get the proof that you met them in real life. And with those proof, we're going to play different games. And like that, you're going to be able to come to our parties. You'll be able to come to different places that we organize. And yeah, basically, we have learned a lot, actually, from this game. There are NFC cards. Every time that you come and you tap it, it creates a new signature, and that signature includes a nonce. So every time that you tap it, it gives you a new nonce. So you can actually trust that you met a person in real life, and that is unique. So another thing that is important to mention here is that we don't think that this is necessarily the best way of doing things, because it creates a weird dynamic. Imagine that we are in a group, and I say, hey, I trust you, and I vouch that you have good vibes, and I give it to that person, but I don't give it to the other 5 that are in the group. It's so weird. Like, to me, it feels really weird. Also, another thing is that the vibes curators from Block Ravers are known by many people in the group. So there's people that are going and are chasing them, and it's more like a scavenger hunt rather than rather than being very authentic, let's say, like authentic connection. So we learn a lot from this, but it's still not the best use case. The way that I'm thinking how this could potentially work in the future is that actually these cards could be exchanging contacts. So only for contacts, not for vouching, not for attestations, but just for exchanging contacts. And then, let's say I meet you, and when I meet you, I say, okay, give her access to my Instagram. And then I give you access to my Instagram. And then I give you access to my Telegram or my email. We start developing our relationship, and then I can give you more access to different parts of my identity. And then I can also start using that for delegating trust for different things. So for example, we can have someone that, let's say Suk is really good in operations. So I delegate, I trust Suk to vote in different DAOs for me when it comes to operations. And then Adrian when it comes to CK and so on. So I can start choosing like different people that I trust for different things. So that means that trust is very contextual. Trust, I can, let's say for example, if I have $100, I can give you Ismail $100. Hey, Ismail, go and buy me some weed. And then he comes and he gets me the weed. Amazing, great. But I can give him also $100 to buy a present for my mom. I don't know. I don't trust Ismail too much on that. The same amount of money, but different contexts, different scenarios. And yeah, basically, we need to understand that trust is not so simple as many are thinking, as just putting a number. The ones that want to put you a number, basically, most of the time, they're trying to enslave you. So block ravers in the future. As you can see, there's so much. Where we're trying to create here is a parallel society that supports each other, that are there for each other, and that raves together. So if you want to join us, scan the block ravers in Istanbul, fill out that form. If you want to talk to me, here on the right side, I'll through that ETH. And yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you, everyone. They could.
It's on.
Okay, it's working, yeah. Thank you, Monu, again. As we approach to the close, let's welcome to the Vivian for the talk about ZK by design. Yeah, let's give a warm welcome.
What's up, friends? Are you guys tired? A little bit. Yeah. I'm gonna pick someone out who I think looks tired. You guys look alive, you look alive. Good, good. I'm gonna present ZK by design. It'll be an exciting conversation, I promise, and tell you a little bit about Aleo, and that is where I work. So, by the way, how fun are these? It's foam. Bet you didn't even realize that. So Aleo is a layer 1 blockchain, and we are focused on private applications. I am head of community at Aleo, which means that I run all things ambassador program, and basically the 0 to 1 of when you get people into the door before they join your grants program or whatever program you have for them. How do you get them to be engaged and interested in what you are doing? How do I? Let me see. Is there a clicker? Beautiful, thank you so much. Okay, sweet. So, let's start. Evolution of Web 3 protocols, what we all love and what we are here for. DigiCash, anyone know what year DigiCash started? Come on, you can yell it, yeah. Yeah, it was one of the first. Your name is Ismail? MVP. It was one of the first peer-to-peer payment systems, and it started in 1989. This idea of, this kid's like, I knew that. This idea of digital gold is not new. This idea of digital fiat is not new. So in 1989, you have DigiCash. This lends the way for Hashcash, BitGold, all these things. In 2009, you have Bitcoin. You have Satoshi Nakamoto, who's like, screw the fact that inflation exists and all of these middlemen exist. Let's create Bitcoin. But the beautiful thing about Bitcoin wasn't actually this digital store of value. It was this crypto-economic security that it provided, where you could have a system of incentives where you had miners and participants on the network that would ensure that the network became more and more secure through trustless and permissionless actions, which is a huge revelation. Then you have this, that also kind of gave way to all of Zcash, Litecoin, BitShares. Important to note Zcash because a lot of what Aleo is built off of, a good amount of it does come from Zcash in the way they do privacy preserving things. 2013-15, you have Ethereum. Ethereum's like, this is cool, but I want to take a computer and I want to put that computer on chain. And I want to make this whole blockchain programmable. So then this gives way to Cosmos, Polkadot, a whole bunch of things. And then you have Aleo. In 2018, this paper was authored called ZEXE, Zero Knowledge Execution. And Aleo said, okay, we're going to take that and we're going to make it a reality. The reason that I think this slide is so important is that a lot of these projects we're another L1. We're yet another L1. And people are like, yeah, but why are you trying to get rid of Ethereum or whatever? And Aleo is not getting rid of any of these previous projects. It's simply a step along the way in the evolution of kind of the Web3 technology that we have. So here's a little diagram for you guys. We have Bitcoin, which is public money. We have Zcash, which is private money. Ethereum, which is public apps. And where is this thing filled that is private applications? And that is what we think we are doing with Aleo. We are basically taking Ethereum and Zcash and we are making their baby and calling it Aleo. Another thing just to note here is that privacy is actually very hard. The first time zero-knowledge proofs were really used in crypto was for rollups, for ZK rollups on Ethereum, because the scalability aspect turned out to be a little easier than the privacy aspect because you didn't need to know as much about the ZKP part, and you could kind of just use it for scalability. And so privacy-preserving aspect wasn't really around in early systems, neither Bitcoin nor Ethereum. And we truly believe that it is one of the absolute missing elements if we want to make, if we want blockchain to have any waves within bigger companies or even like within regulations. Privacy is super, super important. A big theme of this talk is going to be developer optionality. Giving developers the option to choose how much privacy they want to include in an app or not. And along with that, we also want to kind of push this idea of compliant privacy, if you will. So governments that require information, how can we give them the information they need without necessarily needing to divulge everything and share all of this information that could harm individuals and their identity, not even harm, but just take from, right? How many of you guys know Netscape? Nice, you really aged yourself, wow. Netscape was one of the first companies in this whole like web world, right? And the reason Netscape is important is because they really pushed forward this idea of secure socket layer encryption. And with all of these ideas that Netscape was pushing, they were working for a more secure internet. I don't know if you guys know Mark Andreessen. He's one of the founders of A16Z, which is this investment firm in SF. He founded Netscape, which I recently learned, which I thought was hilarious, one of the founding members. But needless to say, there was all this attempt to keep the internet secure, and what this allowed for was to have like commerce on the internet and to make the internet what it is today, for better or for worse. So back to here, Aleo, we're trying to do private applications. Two cool things about Aleo is that, so we compute off-chain and we validate on-chain. And because you can run all of your computations off-chain, you don't need to pay gas fees. Gas fees are these fees that are in like Ethereum and other public L1s to basically prevent DDoS attacks and prevent anyone from subverting the network. And since you can run everything off-chain, you don't actually need to pay gas fee. You can also run things on-chain, of course, where gas fee would occur. And because of this off-chain ability, you can have unlimited application runtime, which might seem like not very important now, but it's becoming increasingly important the more like data intensive, or maybe like storage intensive applications that are potentially running on the blockchain, and also giving kind of the tooling for big ML models to run or whatever on chain. So basically Aleo is everything that like a ZK rollup is, but it is embedded into its L1, and on top of that we basically tried to push this idea of developers being able to play with the amount of privacy that they want on chain. The cost of execution stays constant, whereas the cost of execution on a traditional blockchain like Ethereum, if any of you guys try to send money, then it is quite hefty. How many people pay their rent in crypto? Do you? Wow, that's impressive. No one's paying their rent in crypto. And I imagine we know other crypto people. How in the world are we not paying this simple thing in crypto, right? How many people bought a coffee today with Bitcoin? Yeah, insane. These small things that are just like, that are not happening at a small scale. And it's so important to first start at this small scale before getting to a point where sending one transaction costs 60 bucks. So Aleo is rebuilding from the ground up for this permissionless, interoperable, and private system. 3 components of Aleo are SnarkOS, SnarkVM, and Leo. I will dive into these. SnarkOS is the blockchain. SnarkVM is our virtual machine. It is not EVM compatible. It is, we call it, it's more like an Aleo virtual machine, zero-knowledge virtual machine. And Leo, which is our DSL, domain-specific language. This is basically what I said. So let's say that you guys are a developer. You want to write an application with some zero-knowledge component, but you don't really want to code the intensity of the proofs. So we created this language called Leo. You want to write a simple program. You want to prove you know the sum of 2 numbers. Great. You write this out in Leo. Leo compiles down to Aleo instructions, which gets turned into AVM opcodes. And basically, what you have is AVM opcodes, which then gets turned into R1CS, which is the stuff that proofs are made of. And the beauty of the Aleo virtual machine is that you have this translation between the world of zero-knowledge cryptography, that is group elements defined over elliptic curves, interacting with the world of actual like a program output and computation. And so the virtual machine does this for you. Leo wanted to do away with the complexity of coding ZKPs, but still giving the developers the ability to use the powerfulness of this technology. Another cool thing is that we have a new data primitive called records. How many of you guys know about UTXO and account model? Most of you, maybe. Yeah. UTXO is what Bitcoin uses, the account model is what Ethereum uses, and Aleo uses records. Again, we use records with this intent for keeping privacy. Because the beautiful thing about a record is that it is included in a transition function, which is then included in a transaction. And so the only people who have access to these records are the people who have the view key for their record. We have this view key architecture, which ensures that you are the one who can see that record. The view key architecture also really helps with privacy compliance, where if a government needs to see a certain transaction or certain information about a transaction, you can choose how much of that information is shared. So again, kind of going back to SnarkOS, SnarkVM, and Leo. Talked about developers interacting with Leo. I'll talk about validators interacting with OS and provers interacting with Snark VM. So you're a developer. You want to write a program. And this program is going to be hosted in our program registry. It's going to be hosted by our validators. It's basically a namespace. It's going to have a unique ID because we need to know what program we are interacting with. And the validators will host it. Now, if someone wants to use your program, there's going to be a caller request. And the prover is going to create the zero-knowledge proof from this program and the computation behind the zero-knowledge proof as well. So this prover basically says, okay, the cool thing about this is that you can be the prover. You can say, cool, I want to create a ZKP of this program. If you have the hardware and if you have the resources to do that, fantastic. You can be your own prover. You can give up no privacy whatsoever. You can give up all privacy. You can give up no privacy whatsoever to be your own prover. Now, if you want, though, if you're lazy or if you don't have the hardware, you can outsource proving. So this kind of prover as a service idea where maybe you pay for someone to create your proof. Maybe you don't want to give them everything that creates your proof. So maybe you can give them a bit of the proof. Maybe you solve a bit of it and you give them the final bit to complete the proof. Maybe use multi-party computation to complete the proof. You can do it so there are ways where you're sharing out the burden of the proof where the information isn't all just given. And the beautiful thing about that is that it incentivizes people to create better hardware for proofs. Because if you have a proving marketplace, you want to create the best proof for people to use, a proving system for people to use. Cool. And then the validators will update the state of the chain. By coming to consensus, we use Alio BFT, which is a proof of stake architecture for consensus. Here it is again. We allow users to run zero-knowledge applications on the web. What can you actually do today? This is a question that everyone should be asking every single person all the time. What can you actually do today? This is a very important question. Today we are in testnet. We are in testnet and we are in the final phase of our testnet, which means we are onboarding our validators. We opened an application for validators. We went through 7,000 applications. We selected 50 validators, and we are onboarding them to be on testnet and to be the validators. We are slated to do mainnet in January. That means in January, you should be able to deploy a private application on Alio. And you can use our programming language Leo to do that. Through the testnet phase, we have run a prover phase, and we have run a developer phase, a developer incentive phase, where we had people write out applications, privacy-focused applications. We have, from that, even before that, we have a privacy NFT, which is very cool. We don't. One of our grantees created it. We have a whole bunch of stuff to check out. This card game called, I forget, Baloney. There you go, this card game called Baloney, which activates a ZK element. Because how many of you guys use an app every day that has ZK? None of you better raise your hands. Yeah, because it doesn't exist. Because what would you use it for? Again, what can I do today? This question needs to be asked so much more. This is a new model for decentralized computation. When you look at Ethereum and when you look at Alio, there's a lot of similarities. Both have validators, both have developers. The big difference is the roll-up architecture and the proving architecture. Roll-ups are mainly meant for scaling. Yes, there are some attempts to drive privacy in with ZKPs and Ethereum, but this is why Alio was built from the ground up, because we said, okay, if you want privacy, you really need to build it from the ground up. So yeah, there's private Web3 applications out there that you guys can build. And what do they look like? Sure, they can be any of these things. They can also be anything else. I don't know if the thing about existing applications is that when you add ZKPs, they need to be so much, the application needs to be better. It needs to be better in order to convince someone to go to it. We all care about privacy. We're all sitting here. I don't know if the rest of the world cares about privacy as much as we care about privacy. I don't think they care about privacy enough to make it inconvenient for them. So, If there's an application out there that adds a ZKP to it and it slows the application down by 10 minutes, good luck getting people using it. But if there's an application that has privacy embedded in it, where it is actually more convenient for me to use that application than some mediocre application where privacy is not embedded in it, now I want it. And again, this goes back to developer optionality, where they can choose how much privacy they want in a system. Fully private applications, that can happen. So, zero knowledge token swaps, decentralized exchanges. This is actually a really cool thing because you would get rid of once was minor extracted value, minimum extracted value, and front running. Obviously, with stablecoins, you guys know USDC, you guys know USDT. If you could have a privacy-compliant stablecoin, I don't know about your governments, but US government would love that. So just understanding ways where you can actually offer these things to people beyond crypto. You guys smell that? For it to be successful. Okay. With Aleo, web developers can finally build trustless web services once again. Zero knowledge gaming, machine learning, ZK authentication. I'll just touch on ZK authentication because we have this thing called ZPass that we launched, which was basically an identity, ZK identity. We do a lot of KYC, not to brag, and it's a horrible experience, and we use terrible third-party people, and we are trying to understand a way to basically do KYC without requiring to keep all of this information from people. We're a privacy blockchain. It's so ridiculous that we need to ask all of this information from people just to pass their KYC, and yet, right now, we have no better option. How can you guys get involved? Thank you so much for asking. That's a great question. Here are 3 different ways. We have a grants program. We have a lot of resources for those grantees, and we have a great team of BD that runs that. They are here in Istanbul. They'll be here for the week. Actually, here is where they will be from November 15th to the 18th. We have a ZK hackathon, and each day you can earn up to quite a bit of money with different ways of kind of engaging, you building out ZK apps and stuff. So we have a Learn and Earn on November 15th. We have a Hacker House on November 16th. We have ZK Talks on November 17th, where I will be moderating a panel with Alex Pruden, who's our CEO. He's the man, the myth, and the legend, and someone from the Starknet team, which is going to be very interesting because they are building a ZK EVM, and we are building a ZK VM. And I know that that one letter may seem like it doesn't mean much, but it truly means everything. And understanding what are the actual trade-offs behind using an L1 that is privacy-focused versus an L2 that is privacy-focused, I think is absolutely crucial and something that anyone who's thinking about building and anyone who is thinking about doing anything in this space whatsoever should have an understanding of why they picked what they picked. My friends, I think that's it. That's my Telegram. Feel free to reach out if you have questions and everything. I know it's the last one, so thank you all for sticking around. And yeah, have a nice rest of your day. How fast was it?
A special thanks to you, Vivian, for the great talk, as well as the Elio for sponsoring us. Before inviting for the closing ceremony, I wanna I wanna thank you to all our speakers today for sharing valuable information and insights with us. I want a big round for all of our speakers. Yeah, I can speak right now. We are closing. So I wanna invite our president of RTU blockchain, Gülistan.
Hey guys, as end of the notDEVCON, I want a little speech about the closing and why we are doing notDEVCON actually. And it's not a proper speech actually. And actually, in the Ethereum ecosystem and all the talks, you can see why is decentralization important and why we are focusing on Ethereum's core values. All the speech about the touched by Ethereum's values. We will talk about education, Web3, philosophy, and social impact. And as we can see, we really embrace the core values again. We are taught by companies and the other attendees. You can see decentralization is like a attacked by other governments and other companies. And we are here the end of the speech. I'm a little bit excited, sorry, I know it's really crowded. It is Ethereum's core values. We really see the collaboration culture, and why we are here is the important part. IT blockchain is the I'm sorry about it. I'm excited. IT blockchain is the one larger and larger Ethereum ecosystem with the vibrant Turkish ecosystem, and we are here over the 1,000 attendees, and we just give the 3 workshops and 15 speech at the main stage, and it's a really big number to the IT blockchain and Devconnect event. We are really appreciate to be here, and the end of the closing actually, it is really crowded, and I really thank you to all of you. And I want to give special thank you to our Ether sponsors, LAO, PNW, ENS, and the Ethereum Ecosystem Support Program. And we have Giveether, Aave, and the Nethermind. As a Viether, we have Starkware, CoSwap, Isaac, and Clave. And we have we like to work this event 6 months, day and night, and we are really happy to see end of this our summit, because it is really excited because it is actually our first summit, and we do it with the Devconnect attendees and the global attendees and the Turkish ecosystem people. We give we do that 25 people. I wanted to interest them to come to stage, because Devconnect Harekatı, please come to stage first. Come. We have 25 people, literally worked 6 months, day and night here. Gerçek öyle. No. And Devconnect Harekatı, and we just give the photograph as a Devconnect Harekatı, then we will give the photograph as all volunteers. We have 1,000 volunteers. Come stage. Yes. Yeah, come. All volunteers come. We are really happy to see her. We did this event 100 volunteers. We did that.
Sen çok olsun. Sen böyle geç bence.
Niye? Olsun gelsin. Come. All volunteer, come. All volunteer. No crypto link. Ethereum, maybe. It's a bit Ethereum. Yes.